Welcome back. We're going to call the open session to order. It is 6:32 or maybe 33. We do have some closed session activity to report out. The board approved a pending litigation settlement. That is number OAH, case number 2023-03007. The vote was 4 in favor and 1 absent. In exchange for agreement to waiver of claims related to date, the district has agreed to provide student with a compensatory education fund. And Dr. Gibson, do we have any deletions or corrections?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one presentation on our agenda today. It is the strategic plan for 2023 through 2028. So we have a 5-year plan, and Dr. Gibson will be presenting that today.
Lori, is it possible to put that up on the screen? It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. So I'm just going to walk us quickly through kind of how we got to this point. 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years ago, October, that we sought out West Ed to come and do a full evaluation of our educational program. Specifically, it started out as identifying our special education needs. And through that process, because special education and general education often overlap, through that process, they determined some of our inadequacies as well in our gen ed programs, and just how we support students prior to them getting into special education. So through that process, out came the end of the 2021-22 school year. Am I doing that right? Yes. At the end of the 21-22 school year, West Ed provided us a full report. It was a very large, couple hundred pages. Last school year, the district office leadership teams that consisted of cabinet members and district level directors, certificated directors, we met, I'm going to say, a minimum of 50 hours. It's probably closer to 70 hours over time to pull that plan completely apart and really have deep conversations about what currently existed, what doesn't exist, and how do we take these two sides of the house and remove the silos from them and instead have them really work harmoniously together and have that overlap. And that's truly what we've been missing here is that piece. So through all of that work, we created, and let me take one quick step back. In April of 2022, we also had an initial strategic plan day. It was a 1-day. We had about 50 people, 60 people here actually in this room. And it was really more of a cathartic process for us to really identify some basic needs that we needed to focus on. And they were very, very basic, but we knew that that was what was needed. So we used that last year to kind of guide what we did last school year. We used that in the spring to come forward for last school year while we were creating this plan. One of the things that came from that particular day was the Amador Gold Standard, which the gold stands for Growing Opportunities for a Lifetime of Discovery. And we opted to keep that. The team felt as if that truly represented where we wanted to go long term. So you might start seeing the Amador Gold Standard. It's kind of our branding that we're going to be pushing out all throughout the community. So through that process, we came up with the 5 objectives, Mr. Critchfield. That's a long story about how those became objectives. So we have objective A, which is data-driven staff engagement. And that general objective, sorry, I almost said theme, that general objective really discusses protocols for staff engagement with data collection and analysis to improve student outcomes. Objective B is systems of student support. and that discusses teams define how each tier of our support system ensures that learning is accessible to all students. Objective C is structures, policies, and procedures. Develop structures, written policies, and procedures, and consistently communicate and monitor their use. Objective D is an inclusive culture. Build a culture and belief system where all staff have a responsibility to ensure students have equitable access to all programs. And then Objective E, staff support and development. Develop the capacity of district leaders to create an environment inclusive of all staff and identify site/department professional learning needs. So underneath each of those areas, if you look at the plan, if you just kind of scroll through, you're going to see that there's at least a page of action items that we are going to be focusing on over the next 5 years. Some of them are you do it once and you check it off and you move on. Some of them are truly philosophical things that we need to truly embed into our systems. It just kind of depends. The beauty about this strategic plan and the reason why we used objective A through E versus 1 through 5 is letters are different than numbers. Numbers tend to have people feel like it's linear in nature. So you feel like you're going to do all of objective 1 and then move to objective 2. And in this strategic plan, that's not the case. We're actually really focusing right now on objective D, which is an inclusive culture. And one of our big areas that we're going to be working on as a whole staff in the district is making sure that all of our staff feel included, making sure that the adults in our buildings feel like they are part of a system that is a positive place to be where they are making a difference. Because if our staff doesn't feel included, how are we going to expect that our kids feel included? And so that's why we use letters instead of numbers. So simultaneously, while we're doing that as a whole group, we have subgroups that are working on various areas of this. And we've had multiple teams across the last week or so who have been meeting for various reasons. Perfect example is Mrs. Clement, with the direction of Mrs. Bichette, has been working with a large group of teachers on our MTSS leadership team. And they have spent the last 2 days really pulling this plan apart and figuring out as teachers what part of this plan pertains to them versus which part of this plan isn't on their plate and not their lane. Because there are things on here that are going to be a cabinet level piece. There are things on here that will be a district leadership piece. There are things on here that will be a teacher piece or a principal piece. So as we work through the next 5 years, we'll be able to provide updates for different items and just kind of where we have really made some gains. Our staff is very excited just from the work that we've already kind of tapped into. This also does include, I know Mr. Critchfield spent some time looking through it to see where do certain parts of this fall in relation to consolidation, because consolidation is happening. And so he is, he's even identified just those functions. And so there isn't anyone in our system that can't relate to something that's in here. And so moving forward in the very, very back, so if you scroll through, you'll see all the various different areas. But if you look at the very back, there's also a glossary of terms. So if you see an acronym somewhere in here as you're reading through it, please, if you don't know what that is, you can just look to the back to get the definition of the term. But like I said, we're excited about this, and you'll be hearing a lot about it throughout the year. When we give our challenge coins out, the large circle on the left of the cover page that has our core values, fun, courage, authenticity, relationships, and integrity, that exact same symbol is one of the sides of the coin that we give. The other side says the Amador Gold Standard, and it has a shooting star on it. So we're really trying to just brand ourselves so that we all have that common vision to move us forward over the next 5 years. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, and just know that we will be bringing more and more of this strategic plan language forward as we continue to work to build very robust programs for our kids. Any questions?
Did you guys, I know this is the second time we've seen this, so Did anybody have any questions for this round?
I have more of a comment, I guess. I think it'd be a really good idea, the closer we come to the consolidation, that we have more presentations as far as how this is gonna be involved in consolidation.
Yes.
Just to keep people informed.
Yes, we plan to do that. That's one thing that the consolidated principal has been talking with Jared and I about, with the school year just kind of kicking off. We're talking about how we're gonna roll out the renaming of the school and the colors and all of those pieces. Each step of the way, whether it be the fun things like that, or whether it be CEQA, which is extremely fun, if you ask Mr. Critchfield. All of that, I would say, come late September. Would you agree, Jared? Probably late September, mid to late September, we're gonna probably, most board meetings have something related to consolidation. It could be, hey, we sent out this survey and here's where we are with this, here's the data that we got back from this thought exchange in regards to naming the school. Here's some information on this or that. So I think moving forward, and then when do you plan, I had said earlier to Mr. Crow that I thought that mid to late fall for CEQA? Is that still the plan?
Right now, we're looking at about November
Okay, so
to
late
have
fall.
CEQA completed, yeah.
And all of that will come to the board. And we'll make sure it's very publicized so people know to watch or attend.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if we have no further questions, thank you very much, Dr. Gibson.
Yeah.
I know that it's not very many pages, but I know it represents many hours of work.
A lot.
To get to that point.
Yes.
We do have some of our employee representatives, if they wanted to make comments. Mrs. Jensen, are you here?
Yep.
Would you like to?
Hi, I'm Jeannie Jensen, ACTA president. Not much to say, except people are grabbing the last of their summer and excitedly preparing themselves mentally for their school year. Looking forward to Monday, our kickoff, where we get to have a little breakfast at 8 o'clock and get a meeting at 8:30, and then come back to our schools and start back into the process. So we're very excited. Teachers are excited to be getting this new year started. That's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Martz, on behalf of CSCA, did you have remarks for us tonight? Okay.
I don't really, but I just like to stand here. No, thank you, board, for all that you've done. I hope that you had a good summer. Welcome back, cabinet. I'm excited for the kickoff. I want to welcome Jeannie to her role as new president, and congratulations to her. I just returned from CSEA annual conference, where it was a busy, busy week, from like 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night some days, and we learned that there is quite a few items of legislation that is being presented and on the books and getting ready to be passed, and I'm really excited about that. I wish I had the list with me to tell you all about it, but something to look for and look forward to see. And I just also want to say how much I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this new proposed insurance change, and how many hours have been spent on it. And I hope everybody that can hear me, that is able to vote, has been able to vote. And if you haven't been able to vote, the deadline has been extended to 7:30 tomorrow morning, and I hope that you do get on and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I was excited to hear about the voting for the possible insurance changes.
I'm just going to give a quick little blurb on that, if that's okay, just to piggyback on Mrs. Martz. So for those of you who are like, what are they talking about? So Jared started back in, I don't know, when was that? February, March? We started looking into the possibility of changing our insurance carrier because our staff aren't able to opt out, who should be allowed to opt out. And for some of our staff, it's a long story, but for some of them, they actually pay out of pocket for something that they don't even need. So long story short, Jared single-handedly, and he made a comment to me yesterday about we, and I said, no, there's no we in this. This is all you, my friend. Like, he single-handedly has worked tirelessly on behalf of our staff. He is not somebody that will take any benefit at all because he takes health benefits from us. But it was strictly because he wanted to do something to better our system for all staff who can participate. And so I just really want to give him a shout out and thank him because it has been tireless. And as there have been moments of frustration and moments of excitement as well as anticipation, and the turnout has been exceptional. As of earlier today, it was a high number, more than 50%. 281 people have turned out to participate in this survey to vote, which is far more than I think what anyone had anticipated. So I just want to give him a shout out because it's a true testament to his dedication and our team's dedication to doing always what's best for not only just our kids, but for the adults that serve the kids in our district. So thank you, Jared, for that. And please, if you haven't voted, please vote. There's my shameless plug.
Thank you. So now we have the public comment section of our agenda. I don't have any speaker cards. Was there anybody? No? No, okay. On the consent agenda, we have the usual, the minutes, the warrants. We have a couple of different things this time. We have authorization of signatures, a resolution to use our temporary interfund transfer. And then we have some things from Mrs. Pichette on here this time, an MOU, a consolidated application, and the ag grant application that we usually have every year. Did you guys have any questions about any of those items? I actually wanted to ask you, Mrs. Pichette, if you would mind telling us what the consolidated application does.
So the CONAP is what we call it, or consolidated application, is an application that LEAs are required to put forth to the state. It has to do with funding with our LCAP and our local plan. And so it has different facets of Title I funds, Title II funds, and we take some of those funds, some of them we don't because of the restrictions, high restrictions they have on those funds and how we spend them. And so it's just a yearly process that we go through where we report to the state to receive those funds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you guys have any other questions? I always like to eyeball the ag incentive grants, and we have so many students that we count in the program, and the grant amount doesn't seem to grow with the number of students that obviously grows every year. So I'm always curious about that. I know a lot of it has to do with how many of those students are just taking a one-off ag class versus how many of them are actually working their way through a, what do we call that? A pathway. Thank you. I did have a couple of warrant questions, Jared, and I know I didn't email those to you ahead of time, but they're very easy. I actually know what they all are. I just wanted to highlight them in the meeting tonight. So 6006 7702 to AMS.net. It's for $18,075.69, and the note mentions the Verkada project. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, so we are nearing completion with Verkada. That was a contract that we entered into in, I want to say it was the fall of last year, for $1.2 million, and it has been very successful. The majority of the cameras are up and running. Honestly, the only snags we've run into, Verkada as a company has been great to work with, and installation and scheduling and all that, but supply chain, everyone's favorite term, has been the number one delay in certain parts that I am not qualified to explain what those parts are that we're missing. Dan Hebert could do a much better job, but it's really already proved to help us in a variety of situations where now when unfortunate situations have happened on our campuses, there have been numerous instances where we have video of that. And the video quality is so good that you really can actually tell what went on. So yeah, we're near completion. So this is one of the last payments we'll be making to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that almost all of the cameras are installed and operational. How many cameras did we get? And was it every single school site?
Every school. I don't remember the total offhand. I want to say we're pushing 100 cameras. It was a lot of cameras.
Have we made use of the new cameras yet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have pulled video on numerous instances, numerous. So it's, yeah.
To the point that the cameras work so great, you can clearly identify people in the images.
It's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
awesome.
So please spread the word. Don't vandalize our schools.
Comment, this, it's just so that for the public, the use of the cameras isn't to be spying. I've had several comments out in the public about how, you know, the big brother's in the classroom, and I just want to make that comment.
There are no cameras inside classrooms. They're all outdoors, and it's really for staff and student safety. So the only time we ever look at them is if we need to find out what took place or who was involved. We desperately do not have time to be sitting and just watching cameras, so.
Yeah, so I'm glad that was,
Yeah.
you said that.
The only other thing that I will say is, the other plus is, and I don't know if this has happened yet, but it will be, is that all of our law enforcement agencies will have access to those cameras. So in the event of an emergency and we have to go into a lockdown, if we had an active shooter or something of that nature, that they would have complete access to have a visual on whatever campus that's happening at.
And it helps our administrators. I'm happy to show any board members after the meeting. I have the app up right now. I can scroll to any school and look at the cameras and what's going on. And so it really can help in emergencies and other situations. And I know some people are worried about, spying. I mean, it is our property though. So I mean, just as a reminder to everyone, it is our property and we have the right to have cameras on there. And there are a couple of indoor cameras, but they're in indoor corridors, not in classrooms. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that, where you have a large hallway that's indoors where incidents can occur. And so there might be a camera in there. But nothing inside classrooms, and the overwhelming majority are outdoor cameras.
Excellent. Thank you, Jared.
You're welcome.
So another easy one, 6006-778, and I think I'm missing a number, but it's the Dell check for $81,994.08. I think it was for Chromebooks. And I want to hear from you because folks may be wondering, why are we spending so much on Chromebooks when we clearly purchased so many in recent years?
That's a pretty light purchase for us for Chromebooks. We've done pretty well in our management of Chromebooks as we rolled into and then out of COVID. We definitely increased the number of Chromebooks we have. We're 1-to-1, 7th grade through 12th grade. And so to maintain that, we have a system in place as we're rotating, so we're not having to buy all new Chromebooks for 7th through 12th graders all at the same time. And so in the technology world, they call it a refresh. And so we will be buying Chromebooks every year, multiple times a year, until we decide we're no longer going to use Chromebooks. And so this is just part of the refresh to keep us 1-to-1. And then we're not 1-to-1 at the elementary level, but we have many Chromebooks at the elementary level where they are used quite often, especially by the upper elementary grade levels. But our 7th through 12th grade students, they're issued a Chromebook for the year. They take it home. They have it with them. They take it to class, and it's been, I know there's obvious a lot of negativity about the pandemic, but one thing that we've really noticed is, Google Classroom wasn't being used that much pre-pandemic, and now the majority of secondary teachers use Google Classroom consistently. and they can now because every kid has access. And so this is just part of our annual refresh to make sure that when those 7th through 12th graders land on our campuses next week, they're all issued a Chromebook.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Summertime being the time when we usually have an opportunity to be on campuses with some bigger projects. So is there anything fun and exciting this summer?
The plan is next board meeting. Yes. Sorry.
Ah.
Yes, there was a lot of fun and exciting things. The plan is next board meeting to have, if Joe Cruz is able to make it, if not, I'll present, where we'll walk you through all the summer projects that were accomplished.
Awesome.
Yeah, they still have this week, so I don't want to shortchange them.
Okay.
So.
So the last thing I wanted to highlight that I saw in the warrants is the ones ending 7746 through 7756. And these are our scholarships that went out for our Andreessen recipients. 9 scholarships for $6,000 each, and 2 for the for a 2-year school, $1,300 plus were those. So as we are getting ready to head back to our school year, our recent graduates are also getting ready to head back to start a new journey. So congratulations, and it's exciting to see those.
Yeah, you'll see more on next board meeting's warrants as well. They're still coming in. As they verify enrollment, that's when we are able to cut the check and send it to their school. So,
This is awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Congratulations again to those students, and we don't see their names in the warrants, but they know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Before you guys vote on consent, Mrs. Pichette, do you want to comment at all on the Ag CTE grant?
I just wanted to acknowledge that we have Mr. Ryan Mendoza here from Amador High School, one of our ag teachers who was so willing to come in case there were questions, as he was an integral part of the grant writing. So just wanted to thank him for being here tonight.
did it go up substantially? Is that what did the amount of the grant go up?
Shocking.
Well, I notice it's many more pages than I am used to seeing. So,
Well, I'd like to comment, thank you to all the hard work for the ag teachers working on this plan and working with our students throughout the year. It's very noticed.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza.
I thought it was the same, and then I noticed, oh, there's more pages. So, more formula. It just got more complicated, but we end up with more dollars, so that's fantastic.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, item 12.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Roll call vote. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Real quickly, before we move on to the next item, I would like to congratulate Jacob Geedy, who is joining Amador High School as their drama teacher. Oh,
Argonaut.
and Argonaut.
He's part of the consolidation splits.
Oh,
So we have-
I missed that. I
we-
completely missed that.
We
on
have
the
quite a few
agenda.
teachers, not quite a few, but we have some teachers that slowly but surely we're going to have more and more, but where they are splitting their time for certain programs so that we can start getting some alignment, and he's one of them.
Okay.
So he'll be at both schools. So we're super excited to have him, and Mr. Turner will be back as a volunteer, so we're very excited about that. And that particular program will be transitioning into a CTE pathway going forward.
Well, you guys know I like to look for the returning graduates and the local people coming back.
We're very excited for him. We're excited to have him. He's a great addition.
Welcome. Okay, so 13 communications. We don't have any this meeting. So moving on to discussion and action items. The first one is an exciting educational services board policy update from Mrs. Pichette.
This is actually a reposting. If you remember from last board meeting, there were a lot of questions from board members. So I will just say that I apologize for those last board policy updates that were posted in the agenda 2 weeks ago. There was CSBA has changed their formatting of their updated board policies, and there was a lot of information and extra wording in there that didn't belong in there. And so we've cleaned those up. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Well, Now I wish Mr. Marzano was here.
So I can walk you through really quickly. So in the old one, we had all those blue boxes. Those were actually reference pages for CSBA, so they can historically track changes. And they forgot to tell us to turn the button off for that piece. We don't ever use those blue boxes. So right now, if you look at the marked up copies, you'll see there's very few changes. The ones you had last week, it looked like the entire policy was changing. It was chaos on the page, we'll admit that. So we removed the chaos. And so now you're gonna see on those policies where we had concerns, I think one of them that was the biggest concern, it has very minor changes, such as it is just updating it to allow us to do bill back to the state when we provide certain types of services. And that's the only change that there really is. The policy, the wording that's all in black, that's our current policy that's already been accepted. So we're just requesting that you approve the updated changes that are in there. And they're fairly minimal.
Thank you for the cleanup.
Yes, we turned the button off for our own benefit
Yes.
as well. We were like, what is this? Sorry, we didn't catch that sooner. I apologize.
I'll go ahead and move that we approve item 14.1, the board policy updates.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Roll call vote, Mr. Crow,
Yes.
Mrs. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank you, Mrs. Bichette and Dr. Gibson.
Sure.
14.2 is a resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement. Mrs. DeWalt.
So this is a very wordy request to ask that the board approve for Linda Daly, who is a recent retiree from our district, to be able to come back and work sooner. This is kind of a requirement through STRS. She was working as a TOSA, a teacher on special assignment, the last several years of her career, and she gained a ton of knowledge around supporting some of our ELD programs, including a lot of specifics and requirements around LPAC testing and some things that are very detail-oriented and very requirement-heavy. And she was the keeper of all knowledge when she left. So approving this resolution allows her to come back sooner than the 6-month time window, so she can support the person who's taking over those duties moving forward.
Is this 30 hours total that she's gonna work for us, or is that 30 hours per week? Am I looking
It's
at the wrong
not
thing?
per week, it's in total. It's approximate because it is a little bit dependent on there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of intricacies to what she needs to train the new person on, and so just how long that takes is an estimate.
So possibly it could be less than 30 hours, is
Right.
what you're saying, is that's just a ballpark figure.
Correct.
What is LPAC?
LPAC is an annual test that, or assessment that is given to our English language learners. And they take that test until they meet a proficiency, that then they no longer have to take it. And all of our students, honestly, TK through high school, take it until they they test as proficient in English.
And also we could be hiring anybody to do this, but we're just hiring Mrs. Daly because she was in that position, and right now STRS says that you can't go to work for a school district in the first 6 months that you retire.
But we actually need her
Yeah.
trained now because
Yes.
these
What-
have to be done within the first couple of weeks of school.
Yeah.
So,
So it's more of a STRS requirement that we do.
yes.
Okay. With that, I move that we approve item 14.2.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Mrs. Parker, roll call vote. Mr. Crow.
Yes.
Mrs. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank you. 14.3, notice of intent to employ teacher on a provisional internship permit. These cannot be combined, 3 and 4.
You can, and what we're gonna do in the future moving forward, just so you know, when you start seeing these, we're gonna start putting these on consent. But we have to have one for each individual teacher that we employ under these provisional permits, because they have to go in their file and it has to be sent to CTC. Sorry, Mrs. DeWalt, I just stepped all over you, sorry.
Okay, so the motion will combine both items, and Mrs. DeWalt.
So this is just a requirement from the Commission on Teacher Credentialing that the board approve that you acknowledge that we are employing an intern. And part of the process of this, just so you know, is we actually have to submit the board minutes that show that this was approved to the commission for this internship credential to be kind of finalized. So it's just part of the process. But on the plus side, as a system, we've had some really amazing outcomes when we've hired interns. They've learned a lot from us, and we really gain a lot from them joining our system, and they tend to stick with us. So we are investing in our future as a whole when we do things like this.
And they have to complete so many classes per year in order to renew their permit?
Correct.
I move to approve items 14.3 and 4, notice of intent to employ teachers on provisional internship permits.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Roll call vote. Mr. Crow,
Yes.
Mrs. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank you. And our last discussion action item is 14.5, and it is an ACTA MOU for substitute coverage.
So in June of 2022, this almost identical language was approved by the board to honor the extra work that our teachers put in when they're asked to actually teach and be a substitute at the same time. So there's kind of different layers to this. In secondary, it often looks like a teacher is asked to sub during their prep period, so they give up that to teach somebody else's class. In elementary world, it often looks like adding more students to your class. So if I'm a second grade teacher and the other second grade teacher's out, I might end up taking more students than my own class to teach for the day. And then the other time this MOU really is utilized is sometimes we have intervention teachers that we are in desperate need, and then we end up pulling them out of their regular intervention duties to cover other classes. So this just kind of honors that effort on their part to keep educating kids when we're in kind of a tough situation. This MOU the MOU that was approved in June of 2022 sunsetted at the end of June of 2023. So this is just kind of reaffirming that MOU.
Mrs. DeWalt, I have a question on the change of site per administration. Can you explain that?
There has been a couple, and this usually impacts our intervention teachers more than anybody else. But if I am the intervention teacher at Ione L and Ione Junior High is super short of staff, we have had the intervention teacher at Ione go cover at the junior high. So that's, if they have to change site, that's what it would look like, or could look like.
Thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions?
I move to approve item 14.5, the ACTA MOU for substitute coverage.
I'll go ahead and second.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker and Mr. Whitaker. For the roll call vote, Mr. Crow,
Yes.
Mrs. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that concludes our discussion action items, and we will move on to board reports and superintendent reports. Dr. Gibson?
So late last week, we had our management kickoff, Thursday and Friday. It was a huge success. We had Bill De La Cruz come back, and he did an amazing full day. It was supposed to end a little earlier, and it ended up going a couple hours later than planned because everyone was so into the information and just the dialogue. So it was a great day. On Friday, it was a lot of nuts and bolts actually, and kind of getting us going in the right direction. And then on Monday, we had another principals meeting yesterday, and today we have our MTSS leadership team that's been meeting. So there's just a lot going on as we gear up. I think early last week, I sent out just the whole list of meetings that are happening across the district as we gear up for the new school year, which we felt was beneficial for everyone to see what goes on. We're really looking forward to Monday's kickoff. We are at Amador High School in the gym, and we'll have breakfast at 8. We're going to start as promptly at 8:30 as we possibly can once we get everybody seated. And we have a fun-filled morning with all kinds of presentations and celebrations for our staff. We always celebrate our 5-year increments for those staff members who just recently completed that year. So we will do that. We'll have some trainings involved, and then we have a really wonderful guest speaker from Bridge the Gap, the book that we've all been working from to really improve our communication skills with each other. So please feel free, as I said at the last board meeting, we invite all the board members, please feel free to join us for breakfast and come and meet staff and mingle with them. Feel free to stay as long as you would like. I don't think, did I miss anything? Chairs or anything else we want to talk about? No? Okay. I think that's it. We're excited for Wednesday morning school kickoff. Transportation, can you just give a little bit of an update? I've had a couple people in the community ask me about cards and QR codes. Do you have any of that information handy?
So we're still working through the implementation of easy routing, and so they'll be working with families. The system is up and running on the tech side of things. It's just more managing how to get all the kids their card with their QR code on it so they can scan in and scan off the bus. But we had some schools up and running last year, and so we have the goal is to have everybody up and running within the first couple weeks of school.
Will that QR code go on the back of their student ID, or will it be a separate card? Like, I'm speaking more for elementary.
That is one of the things we're working through.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a couple parents today ask me about it when I was out and about, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So please, if you have questions, reach out to us, to one of our offices, and we're happy to answer whatever questions you may have. That was for parents. And otherwise, we're excited for another fun school year. And again, like I stated before, it's the first year in quite a few years that we aren't having to implement any type of COVID protocols or even discuss it. So we're very excited to be back to normal, truly post-pandemic.
Excellent.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crow, did you want to make a report?
Just want to wish all the students, staff, teachers a good start to the year, and hopefully we have a good upcoming school year.
Thank you. Mrs. Parker?
I don't have a report.
Okay. Mr. Whitaker?
Well, I did stop by the fair. Was really impressed with some of the displays that I saw, especially in the junior arts building. We have a lot of very talented students that go through there. I also stopped by the meeting last Friday with all the directors and principals and everything, and the mood in there was very upbeat and very positive, so that's good to see. And I echo the sentiments of Mr. Crow. Hope everybody has a great year.
Thank you so much. I don't have a report at this time. Looking forward to just getting back to school. So that will, hang on, I have to give the official date of our next meeting. Our next meeting is Wednesday, August 30th, tentatively scheduled to be held here at the Amador County Administration Building. Open session starts at 6:30 p.m. And as you heard Jared mention, we will hopefully have a facilities update at that time. Thank you. So do you So we're adjourned. Lori, the time is 7:17, 18. Do you guys want a break or do you want to roll on through? We have 2 votes for a break? Press on. Okay, we're gonna keep going. I thought you guys were saying, no.
No, I didn't need a break, I'm good, yeah.
No. I will take my break at home.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna call to order the meeting for the Amador County Office of Education. We are missing Mr. Marzano. Dr. Gibson, did you have any deletions or corrections to this agenda?
No, I do not.
Okay, and for employee organizations, I do not see either Mrs. Crowe or Ms. Matheson. Does anybody have public comments on non-agenda items? I do not have any cards, so we're gonna move on. The consent agenda contains the usual items, warrants, signatures, the same parallel resolution for the district side, and also the consolidated application or the con app to mirror the district side. Does anybody have any questions on the county consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda, item number 8.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker and Mrs. Parker, for the roll call vote. Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. We do not have any communications. We do not have any discussion items. We do have some information-only items. We have personnel recommendations. We have 2 MOUs. Mrs. DeWalt, what do we need to know about the MOUs?
One is just a new job description for a position in the Ed Services Department. This kind of goes along with the whole reason why we need Linda Daly to come back and help train. The second MOU is a reclassification of special education instructional aides. After some investigation, we had 2 different job titles working as instructional aides in our classrooms in our Mod Severe program, but they were all doing the same job. And there was a pay difference and some other things that went along with that. So this is recognizing that all of those people are doing the same work and calling them the same job title, and then compensating them the same amount for the same amount of effort. So those are the 2 MOUs.
That sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
I just think that over time, people got hired under different titles based on whatever that moment was, but when you really looked at it and we started digging into, they're all working in the same classroom, supporting the same kids. These programs house a lot of our students with, there's toileting and feeding, and sometimes they have some more significant health needs, so it just it made sense to reclassify them all under an instructional aid medical fragile.
Excellent. That even sounds more to the point as well. It's only informational, so we don't have to approve. Did you guys have any questions?
Oh, I'd like to make a comment. Thank you, Mrs. DeWalt, for all your hard work in bringing all these things throughout the year, your first year as personnel director, getting these systems in place and cleaning things up. It's really appreciated.
Thank you very much.
So I've heard Dr. Gibson actually mention that we're starting this school year with fewer vacancies than in most recent years. Do you guys have any idea what that, like how many fewer?
Yeah, we should have actually done that in the district meeting and given you an update, because a lot of our vacancies are over there, but let's just go ahead and you can just do a full position control update.
So we still have a few interviews and things to do before school starts, because sometimes we've been filling positions, but then it causes a domino where it's a current employee switches jobs. As of this moment, we have 5 classified positions we're trying to fill. And then if those aren't filled by the first day of school, we have a plan to cover those needs. And then we have 11 certificated positions. And as of about 3 o'clock today, we have coverage for anything that's not filled. So with our unfilled positions, we're over 98% staffed with regularly employed employees for the first day of school.
Wow.
So,
Which is truly amazing compared to, you listen to things happening out in the other parts of the state, and they've got very large gaps. So kudos.
I'm impressed you had all those numbers at your fingertips. Thank you. I was expecting like rough estimates.
She actually dreams about this all. I promise you. At night, it's probably a lot that goes on in Jenny's brain about all these numbers every single day.
So did you say 5 classified and 11 certificated, and you've kind of worked out a worst case scenario to cover them even if you don't fill them? Wow, that sounds very promising.
Welcome to our HR department.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have any additional reports? Dr. Gibson?
Nope.
Board members? Okay. Our next meeting is Wednesday, August 30th, tentatively scheduled to be held here at the Amador County Administration Building. Open session will start immediately following the school district meeting. We are adjourned. It is 7:25.
that might be a